This is Olympian Dan Smith. In 2019, a video of him went viral, with more than 1 million people viewing this video of him swimming 100 meters in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Dan made this pace look so easy and effortless, he had people wondering, what is he doing in his stroke that I'm not? How is he able to swim this fast but make it look so easy? We caught up with Dan Smith to ask him these questions and to find out what he's doing as he swims that allows him to be so efficient.
My name is Dan Smith and I'm a retired Olympic swimmer. I was fortunate enough to swim for about 21 years of my life. Really high highs, as you could imagine, but also really low lows at times. So yeah, really passionate to see swimmers not experience some of the stuff I did, but also really increase that technical insight that they need in order to take their own swimming to the next level. You always have to remember that swimming, we're in a technical based sport. It doesn't matter whether you're a triathlon wanting to get your triathlon faster. It doesn't matter if you're a competitive swimmer wanting to get to a state or national level. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner swimmer. You have to understand that you're in a technical sport. Naturally, as swimmers, we think about getting fitter before we get faster, and we're spending all this time doing these laps. And I'm truly yet to understand how much of a purpose they actually serve our swimming. So for me, the first fundamental truth to understand in swimming is we're in a soft surface. So you have to make sure that your body is so well tuned and primed for your swimming goals. And then secondly, you have to learn how to connect with the water. If you can't connect with the water, you're never going to be able to drive. And a friend of mine recently, Jack McLaughlin, he said, the water's actually trying to give you some sort of feedback. It's trying to actually connect with you. And another quote that I really like is Alex Popoff. And you can watch him all over YouTube. He says that if you befriend the water, it will help you move. And when we befriend the water, it helps us move. And it's such a true thing. You think about our friends, like, well, I hope so, but we're not mean to our friends. We don't fight our friends if we want them to be our friend. It's the same with the water. You don't want to fight it to work for you. It's all about connection. It's all about these kind of words that help us connect with the water. So just remember, we're in a technical sport. Invest the time, invest your resources, get upskilled in that area, and you can do laps whenever you want. You can go to any program in the world and do laps. You could go to anywhere in the world and do laps. What we do struggle to get in swimming is that technical feedback or that technical awareness or that upskilling. So that's where I would invest most of my time. So what things do I think about when trying to maintain my body position or my head position? Swimming's a very awkward sport. Like, we are in a soft surface, not a hard surface. So you can't just be all bendy and floppy and just guess how you want to be in the water. You have to actually make sure that your body's helping you, not hurting you. That it's actually setting you up for success and not hindering your success. So whenever we're thinking about body position, and this is one my physio helped me with a lot, and my coach, is what we would do a lot is making sure that our chest, which is up here, is on our rib cage. So it's like a bit of a compressed feeling down on our rib cage, which what that does is then straighten our back up. And once we have a straight back, then we can start to pierce through that water. We don't want to have a lumbar curve in our back and be sticking our backsides out in the water or have any water on our back in swimming. We're trying to minimize that as much as possible. Drag minimization, trying to cut through that water. The higher we sit on the water, the faster we're going to be. So for me, there's a couple of really simple cues that would fix that for myself, which is thinking about chest down, which is like getting that feeling towards your chest. And you can work on this whether you're at work, whether you're at school, whether you're, in everyday life. You can be working on this postural stuff and then thinking about tummy nice and tight. So our core should be nice and on. I like thinking of it as the glue. It's the thing that holds all this together. And then thirdly, which is our head position, is making sure that that chin is back. If our chin's back, then we've got that nice alignment in the water, and then we can start really setting ourselves up. If we can get it on land first, it makes it so much easier in the water. So do I recognize whether my body position is high enough? Probably not. That's why feedback is important. Yeah, it is hard out there to have that real constant feedback on your stroke. As swimmers, we can have so many swimmers in the squad and not get that feedback that we want. But we're so lucky nowadays with technology. We can have a simple smartphone, a simple GoPro on the bottom of the pool and film ourselves and start to self-analyze what's actually going on with our stroke. That's something that I did hugely. Just because I was in elite hub didn't mean that I had that real personal intentional feedback that I wanted. So I had to become a master myself. I had to become my own master of technique. So does my kick change when I increase the speed? Of course it does. Now, I was a very leg dominant swimmer. When we think about being a leg dominant swimmer, the problem is our legs are such bigger muscles than our arm muscles. So if we're sitting in our legs too much, what that means is then we're gonna burn way too much energy for what we need to do. So, or the race that we need, or the energy we need to conserve ourselves for in the race. So we need to be, I would say, only 20% in our legs and 80% in our arms, because our arms are much smaller muscles, but also very strong, and that's where the connection point comes from. So whenever you're trying to increase your speed or increase your kick, the biggest thing that we want to make sure that we're not doing, and I'm just speaking, I was actually a 29.0 second for a 50-meter kick. So I was a very great kicker, but it's very, very hard to bring that level of kick into your swimming, because again, like I was saying before, your swimming, your kick is only about 20% of your stroke. So what we want to make sure is we don't have a nice big knee bend kick, because think about how much weaker our knees are versus our hamstrings and our glutes. So we want to have more of a straight-legged kick, nice relaxed ankles, and we want to start practicing kicking from our backsides or our glutes and using our hamstrings so we can really leverage our kick, and it should be assisting our stroke, not driving our stroke. And as we increase our speed, we narrow that kick up more, and then we start to generate the power through our arms, and our kicks follow the stroke, not lead our stroke. Is there a typical breathing pattern that I follow? I personally hate bilateral breathing. If you think about all the best swimmers in the world, how many swimmers do you see that actually can do bilateral breathing well? There isn't too many, probably more so on the distance swimmers, but there's not a 100 meter, 200 meter, even 400 meter swimmer that actually bilateral breathes well. So I like thinking about, and the advice that we normally give is you would only give about 20% of your laps should be bilateral breathing. And that makes sure that you're actually swimming the way that you want to race. You don't want to swim and bilateral breathe for the sake of bilateral breathing if you don't race that way or it's slower. What's the point of that? So the only reason why anyone would breathe both sides is to make sure that you're not creating any sort of imbalances in your stroke. And what that does is help balance out those neck muscles a little bit more. Unless you are that certain kind of freak of nature that can bilateral breathe at faster speeds, then I recommend bilateral breathing. But from my perspective and my experience, I have not seen too many swimmers be able to do that. So in regards to rotation in swimming, it's a really, really hard thing to wrap your head around, especially if you are more of a beginner or a triathlete swimmer, because the thing that we want to do is we want to try and keep our hips flat and only rotate our upper body. Now, what a lot of swimmers do is they rotate the whole body, so hips and shoulders at the same time. And all as that does is makes us break down in our connection point. If we think about cross connection or anything, the connection point should come from pretty much the tip of our fingertips all the way down to the tip of our toes. So from our left arm all the way through to our right leg. So if we think about it, if my legs and my hips, if my upper body and my hips rotate to the side, and then that's going to make me break down and not have that good connection that I want to. But if I keep my hips flatter and keep that really good cross connection and only rotate my upper body, then I can really set myself up to catch properly and get that really good lever in that connection point with the water. So one of the most common problems with the recovery position of the stroke is what we call overreaching. Now, it's a bit of a hard thing to explain, because the only thing that I've found work for the brain is to actually tell it to swim shorter. Now, you don't want to be too vocal about a cue like that, but if you quickly dissect a lot of people's strokes or analyze their stroke, you'll often find that their elbows are entering in before their hands. Now, the problem with that is when the hand enters and you enter in here, it naturally creates a dropped elbow through the stroke. So if you have a dropped elbow and you're swimming like this, can you truly connect with the water? 100% no. So what we want to do is make sure that our fingertips are always entering in before our elbows. Now, a simple drill to correct that, and you can add this into your warm-up, into your normal program, or whatever your swimming goals are, is just adding in a simple fingernail trail drill, just dragging those fingertips across the water and then dropping your hand down and making sure that your hand is entering before your elbow. Now, the problem with that is you're moving into what we call advanced skills, which is frustrating, it is annoying, it is really hard to get it to work for you, because what actually happens is then we're moving into what we call overhead hand awareness. Now, what's the problem with overhead hand awareness? Is you can't actually see what you're actually doing. And that's the hard thing. So often there's a disconnect between our brain and our hands, and if that's disconnected, how can you actually get your hands to enter in right? So when you're progressing your stroke and you're trying to enter your hands in properly, do it slowly, make sure that you're doing it really carefully, because it's a very, very hard thing to master, and one I struggle with a lot of my career. So how long would I try and keep my arm out in front of me? Now, that's really going to depend on how well you're connecting through the back end of the stroke. If we think about all the power that we have, all the connection, all the power, all that drive forward movement comes through what we do through the back of the stroke. So if we don't have a great back end of the stroke and we force here, it means we force here. But if we have great push in through any of our strokes or great pull through the back of the stroke, that allows time to set up the front of the stroke, and then we can connect with the water. Now, we don't want to be resting out on our arms and developing all kinds of funky movement patterns that are kind of coping mechanisms and create more stroke flaws. But if we're working on our movement pattern through the back of the stroke, that allows time up the front of the stroke, and my coach used to call that cheap travel, which means while everyone else is spinning their wheels, you are connecting with the water and drive forward, because you're actually connected with the water and you're allowing time to set up through the front of the stroke. So that's really a big thing we were trying to work on, is that cheap travel feeling in our stroke. So how would I describe my catch and pull? Again, we're moving into what we call advanced skills. Body position is always the easiest thing to correct, but if our body position isn't right in the water and then we go start working our movement patterns, you are going to be wasting years of your swimming, like I have personally throughout my career. So the first thing is we want to make sure your body is sitting as well as possible in the water. It's not too hard to fix with a few simple drills and corrections and the right cues. But whenever we're thinking about catching the water, we're always starting up with the setup of the catch. If we think about our catch position and we're not setting up right, or we're not making sure that we're entering into that nice high elbow position, then unfortunately we're not going to be able to get the catch right. So we have a saying that dropped elbows drop swimmers. And it's a really, really important concept to understand. Dropped elbows, drop swimming, and you pretty much just give away precious time to your competitors. So what we're trying to do is make sure that when the hand's entering, and you can just do some simple kicking drills in the catch position, making sure we've got a nice high elbow catch position. And what we're doing is starting to develop that really good overhead hand awareness, that catching feeling in the water. And what that's going to do is help set up the stroke. Now, to finish this off, the thing that I would personally recommend, and it's a very simple thing to start thinking about to get the catch right, wherever the fingertips go, your elbow goes. So if your fingertips go in and you shoot them forward, what does that do? It creates a dropped elbow, which drops swimmers. So what we want to do is make sure that when our hands enter, we're shooting our fingertips down, or get over the barrel, as Brenton likes to call it, or we like to say, you even spearing a donut. If your hands are entering in forward and you want to spear the donut and have a good feast on a donut, make sure that your hands are actually going down and getting into that nice high elbow position. If I go in and my hands go up, I completely miss the donut, or I can't get my hands over the barrel, as Brenton would like to say. So make sure that when you're working on your catch and pull, to make sure that your elbows are getting in that high elbow position, and how we do that is making sure that wherever our fingertips go, our elbow goes. So where I would apply the most power in the stroke is probably not what you would expect. To me, the power, whether you're butterfly, whether you're freestyle, whatever stroke you're doing, the power always comes from the back end of the stroke. So it's the inward sweep and the outward sweep through the back of the stroke. Now, if you don't have that, you're just going to rush here and then rush the setup of your catch. So to me, what we need to do, and that's why learning to swim slow perfectly is an art. It's a skill. It's a thing that you have to learn. A lot of our laps as swimmers is done at a very awkward pace that doesn't actually help our swimming. And so what we want to do is make sure that when we're doing our slow swimming, we've got not too much pressure on the stroke, we've got nice downhill swimming, and we're really working on the good movement patterns, and we're starting to create those good habits in our swimming, and we work on that at slow speeds first and then start progressing it. And that's what we were able to do really, really well in swimming.